Hello everyone, this is Soviet Russian Bear, and today I've got another good article for you, this time from Russia Insider. This article is made by Sharon Tennyson, an American woman who lives in Russia for 33 years, including from the Soviet Union. She works for some organization, non-governmental organization. Okay, let's read. Russia doesn't look like a failing state. That is the title of the article. The president of the Center for Citizen Initiatives shares her first-hand impressions upon return from a tour throughout Russia. The article was published on July 4th, 2016, so it may seem a bit old, but nevertheless, it is a very good article, so let me read it for you guys. I'm writing this while in flight, having just left Russia. This trip was the richest experience in my hundreds of trips to Russian cities in the past 33 years. US media tells us that under the pressure of sanctions and low oil prices, the Russian economy is failing. But after seeing Russia this spring, no one has to question this. I traveled to Russia numerous times during the drabness of and product scarcity of the Soviet years 1983-1989. Following that, I spent months each year in Russia amid the disintegration, lawlessness, and chaos of the 1990s. During this period, Russians had lost all hope in themselves and in Russia at large. I watched during the 2000s as a semblance of order began to slowly emerge. During this period, I also noticed Russians beginning to question who are we, what is our national idea. The Americans don't stop to ask these questions. At least until recently, we have seemed to know who we are. We have identified with the confident Lone Ranger. We have assumed that any American can rise up and accomplish what he or she wishes, that any child can come from the bottom and rise to the top. Any man or woman can build his or her own dreams and live them out. This has not been so for Russians. They haven't had this kind of background or confidence. Wars, occupiers, and unsuccessful social experiments, such as 75 years of communism, have made indelible impressions on their psyches throughout the centuries. In years since 2000, Russians have gradually begun to build a lawful environment to rein in corruption and to emerge from the abysmal hole in which they found themselves at the end of the 20th century. However, like our society, today's Russia remains far from perfect. Today it is exhibiting the growth pains to be expected from a country only 25 years into building a democracy for the first time. Despite the quite amazing progress Russians have made, a narrow segment of current American policymakers are determined to discount their efforts, put roadblocks in their way, and require standards that are different from other US allies like Saudi Arabia and Israel. The roadblocks have included economic sanctions that have significantly reduced the incomes of average Russians and the Russian economy as a whole. Interestingly, in the long run, these sanctions may end up having an unanticipated positive impact. Many Russians believe that the sanctions are helping force Russia to become more self-sufficient in numerous areas, including food production. The richness of Russian society as of July 1st, 2016. Russia's second-tier cities are being rebuilt along the lines of classical architecture and beauty, in some cases surpassing Moscow. Of course, these cities don't rival Moscow in size or wealth, but they do show their unmistakable results of tearing down the ugly and replacing with handsome new structures of or newly faced buildings. The changes can be seen in Krasnodar, Yekaterinburg, Perm, Chelyabinsk, Novosibirsk, Vladivostok, Yakutia, Chita, Tyumen, Rostov-on-Don, Belgorod, Samara, and Novgorod, to mention a few. Crimea lags behind the other parts of Russia due to being under Ukraine, where no repairs were made for 25 years. However, I observed considerably more order in the Crimean cities of Simferopol, Sevastopol, and Yalta since my last trip there 9 months ago. What has caused this richness and beautifuling that has happened simultaneously across Russia? No doubt the Russian state proceeds from the sale of oil and gas have been responsible for much of it. But also local designers and entrepreneurs have been heavily involved and are doing very well themselves. Today Russian people on the streets are dressed as well as or better than many of their American counterparts in the US. The homes in which we each visited were well appointed. Despite the sanctions, there was plenty of food on the tables. Each of the 6 cities we visited sported numerous mega shopping centers, well resurfaced city streets, and newly marked lanes with pedestrian walkways. We spent time stuck in traffic jams thanks to streets being full of new model European and Japanese made automobiles. Even Russia's new Lada looks equal to foreign-made cars. We saw no dilapidated autos on Russian streets today. You'll be hearing more about our June 2016 trip from me and other group members in the coming days and weeks. That is all. I think it's a very good article indeed. And there are people who live in Russia and who can see beyond the propaganda of Western mainstream media. Well, as I've said multiple times in my videos, nothing can change Russia's political orientation in foreign policy. Yeah, that is all for now. Soviet Bear out.